hello, and welcome to another episode of Man with a Mentor. I am the man, your host, Matthew Barnard, and you may be wondering what a show called Man with a Mentor may be about. And it's about me talking to people who have a fascinating career, and they went with it, and they have had amazing success with it, and they just keep achieving all they want in their life, which is so important. And today, my guest is Michael Unger. Hi, Michael.
Hello, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm going to introduce you, and I'm going to say Michael Unger is a multiple award-winning performer who appears as a soloist and chamber musician in America, Europe, Japan, South Korea, and Canada, where he's from originally. Michael holds a doctorate of musical arts from the Eastman School of Music and a gold medal graduate of the University of West Ontario. Currently, he is associate professor of keyboard, organ, and harpsichord at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music and serves as the organist at Cincinnati's historic Isaac Wise Plum Street Temple. I'm tired, Michael. I'm tired already.
All
No,
those
that's...
things. No, I'm yeah.
How do you do all that?
Uh, it's a balancing act, isn't it? I'm grateful for it. I mean, it's a wonderful diversity of things, and that's really what we do as musicians, right? I mean, we're kind of many places at many times, so keeps it interesting.
Right. Well, let's dig into some interesting stuff here. Like, when did you feel that music came into your life in the way that you remember? As what were you, like 2, 12? What was the instrument? What was the circumstances and all that good stuff?
Great question, because I mean, various different stages, but like my earliest memory of this must have been like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, and my parents bought me a little like toy piano, and I was just, it was one of those things that I had played with as a toy as a child that I played with more than other things. And so it was around the age of like 6 or something. They were, observant and saw that I was, connected to this toy piano and said, well, what if we actually got a real one? And I just sort of fell in love with it in gradual ways. I mean, they weren't pushing music on me. I mean, it was, a thing that I did along with other things that they were trying to sort of make me well-rounded into. Swimming lessons and being on skates because I'm from Canada. But it was always like I was doing the music thing more than the other things. And I would, practice piano. I would improvise the piano. I would just sort of stay connected to the piano more than I cared about some of the other things that we tried. And like piano eventually gave way to, well, not gave way. I mean, I still play piano, but I do more now as an organist, and I do know now more as a harpsichordist. That's more where my profession has taken me. Organ came gradually as well. I went to church with my parents, and a new music director and organist had come to the church and heard me as a 12-year-old playing piano and thought, maybe he would be interested in eventually trying some organ things. And that's how she became a strong influence in my ultimate work to do organ. And then harpsichord came gradually from that too. I started my undergraduate majoring in piano with maybe an interest of doing, piano chamber music or maybe composing or maybe teaching. But had taken organ lessons and started to realize I was doing organ more than I was doing piano. And I was interested maybe more in the repertoire or more of the instrument. So that became more my focus. And then harpsichord satisfied a bit of my chamber music interest, chamber music need. It became something that I was encouraged to do, and again fell in love with the repertoire, fell in love with the performing of it, and that's kind of the long story of how I went from toy piano to organ and harpsichord.
Yay, you didn't just end up as Schroeder.
There you go. Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm wondering though, because I've talked to a few other musicians, and it seems like maybe they take up piano at an early age, and then they want to do music, but they want to do it in a school-related setting, and it's very difficult to push a piano across the football field. So they so they end up doing like a brass instrument or something else. But did you think about that? When you went to school, where you're like, I want to play the piano. How do I play the piano in school and get extra practice there? Or did you like add another instrument, or did you just say like maybe not doing it at school? I don't need to do that. I can do it on my own.
No, I was lucky in North Toronto that I was able to go to an arts focused high school. That I loved being in the school band. I loved being with all my music friends and really inspiring band teachers and opportunities there. I sang in choirs. That's something I still do. I still enjoy sort of recreationally singing in choir. But yeah, no, certainly in school, yes, I mean, we maybe had a piano program at my arts high school, but that wasn't actually my in-school focus. I did more band and choir things at the time.
Right. Let's talk about the harpsichord. Because is it something you see for sale in your average music store? Like, how do people find an interest in it? How do you get one? How do you find a teacher for it? I mean, is it more popular and more mainstream than I think it is, or is it not as mainstream as I think it is? Like, am I
I,
naive?
That's a great question, and I'm not even sure I know if I'm the authority to answer on what's mainstream or not. Um, I, my first experience with the harpsichord was actually in high school, in this arts high school. So my the choir it was Christmas time and they were doing excerpts from Handel's Messiah, which is ambitious for a high school choir, but fine. And they hired uh some local singers and some local instrumentalists who were going to be part of this production. And I don't know why I was so bold, but I remember going to my high school choir teacher saying, usually there's like a harpsichord involved in these performances. Are we going to have a harpsichord, for this performance? And if so, I'd be very interested in playing it. And she said, sure. I was most shocked by that. They rented a harpsichord for this performance. Um, and that was my first time, having experience with it. It was nothing like the piano. Related. I mean, they look the same. They're both keyboard instruments, but how sound is produced and how one makes music with it was so new and surprising to me. Um, and again, it was eventually like once I got to University of Western Ontario, where harpsichord became a second love of mine in addition to the organ. I had a great teacher. I had great opportunities for ensemble music in that way. It's whether it's mainstream. You can find harpsichords. You can find them. There are builders who specialize in making them. There are resources for finding used harpsichords. There are ways to learn to maintain them well. They have to be tuned in a maybe more regularly than a piano, given kind of the historic technology of it. But yeah, whether to describe it as mainstream or not, I don't know. But you're seeing it more and more. You see it more on stage with like the Cincinnati Symphony when they're doing a Baroque piece that they would include that sound and that world into their kind of modern instrument performance. So there's more of it maybe.
Right. And they just know to call you. Um,
Grateful, look, grateful for that. I mean, I love doing it.
let's go on to what it looked like in high school in terms of practice. And did you feel like I'm ready for college? I'm going to major in this. I'm going to just go full throttle towards this. Or were you still like hesitant about a music degree? Was there anything that scared you off about you know, like, would you make it? Are there a million people better than you? Did you have fears, or were you confidently headed into the big blue sky?
No, it wasn't so much confidence. I didn't have at the time a clear vision of a career. I knew that like being a solo concert pianist is hard, and it wasn't that I was fatalistic or down on my skills. I just wasn't even sure whether, a life of piano concerts and piano concertos was for me. There was lots that I was interested in. There's lots that I'm still interested in. I went to university not sure, would I go into, would I do some composing, would I do teaching, what instrument would I do, and would I miss being an ensemble. So I mean, it wasn't a clear cut career path. I just knew that like I was interested in some aspect of this. I just didn't know what. So college was a beautiful way to kind of explore and find out. Um,
Right.
that's kind of how I left high school, kind of with that, not so much aimlessness, just like, okay, I know I want to do something, but it's still kind of refining what that something would look like.
When you got to college, were you like, ooh, I gotta work at this more than I used to? Were you like playing your fingers to the bone, literally
Um,
or figuratively, or like how demanding is it? Was it at that time, and how demanding of it is it now, or do you feel like I got this? I can practice things and pick it up like that.
it's demanding, and doubts are always going to be there. And certainly there are going to be moments where it's you're in the practice room and feeling the pressure, or feeling discouraged. But I don't know. Maybe I was naive in college. It wasn't like practicing was born out of fear or born out of competition. I'm not saying that was never there. Sometimes, of course, that was, and sometimes the competition was with myself. I doubted my own abilities, doubted my own capability of doing something with this. But I don't know. I think that's also why, like, having multiple interests or multiple skills can be a really healthy thing. So it wasn't just like this sort of tunnel vision of I gotta do all this kind of practicing and just and I mean, there's the discipline of it, there's the craft of it, of course, but there was also, the world that opened up to me was improvisation or collaboration or sacred music, which involves both improvisation and collaboration. I think there was a lot about kind of the possibility that was more joy filled that kind of made up for some of the more stressful moments and some of the more moments where I really did doubt, um, could I do this? Should I do this? Do I have anything to offer?
I'm just wondering, you mentioned composing. Do you feel like all piano players are composers, or do you think there's piano players that only want to just play what they're given, or is it a little bit of column A and column B? Like, how do you think of
Uh,
most pianists?
well, yeah, it's hard for me to really speak to the piano world. I mean, I don't feel like my world is really in the piano. I mean, I think there are pianists who compose. I think there are pianists who improvise. That's wonderful, and that was sort of something I'd really love to be able to do as at both the harpsichord and the organ and occasionally piano. Um, it's not that those skills are always transferable. I mean, improvisation is a different thing than performing, composed repertoire, but there's a common language. You can see in the composed repertoire how the composer themselves, may have come to something born out of improvisation. Um, that's exciting. That's exciting to sort of look at a piece of like Bach, for example, and sort of see like, well, how did Bach come to write this? I mean, what was Bach? doing at the keyboard or away from the keyboard that led to this masterpiece. And how can I kind of learn from that? I mean, not that my improv is, my work as an improviser or composer is going to sound like Bach, and maybe it shouldn't. But it's wonderful to have that kind of broad worldview about the connections between what's written down and what we can kind of produce on our own.
Right. I wanted to ask you about teaching. Do you think it's better to be tough and with a stark reality of what it takes, or do you think it's better to be like more nurturing and like reassuring as a professor?
You'll have to ask my students whether the answers that I give are in line with their reality. But I think one of the joys of teaching is kind of seeing the individual on their own terms as well. And also realizing that changes too. I mean, we people mature differently in a different times. I mean, how one responds to feedback and how that feedback is presented, yeah, that's going to be different for a 10-year-old who's just wanting to have fun. Maybe a 20 something in grad school who's kind of doing something with a different purpose for refinement or career preparation. But again, some students are going to respond to different presentations of that, and I love that, and that's true technically as well. If there's going to be technical concept, some students are very kind of abstract, intellectual, conceptual. Some just need to learn by doing it and by just putting their hands on the keyboard. And truthfully, it's a little bit of both, and that kind of mix makes us all unique and kind of makes a teacher's job kind of, well, how do I bring that out? How do I encourage that?
If someone came to you and their desire was to become a professional musician, first of all, do you see yourself as a mentor? And as a mentor, like what would be some good advice, some good tips for things to do along the way? And definitely maybe some things to avoid doing or some traps to not fall into.
I would love and would sort of be honored to consider myself as a mentor. But again, that's not maybe a title that I put on myself. That's more like what a student would want. And to your question of like, if someone were to pursue a career in musical performance, I mean, what does it take, or is it something to encourage? I mean, some advice would be the reality is a diversity of skills is a helpful and beautiful thing. It goes back to what I was saying, like the tunnel vision of just like practicing your technique exclusively. There's a necessity for honing that, and there's also the reality of broadening your curiosity and your skill set, to be able to embrace all these things. I didn't know in high school that I would someday teach organ and harpsichord at a university in the United States. Didn't see that coming. But I knew that, I wanted to keep all my options open and sort of explore things that were really interesting to me, which is another kind of encouragement and also thing to just, I don't know, be reminded of is that we are people first and musicians second. Sometimes where stress comes in is where we reverse those and we think we're musicians first and people second, but no, we are people first, musicians second. So we have to honor like what our spiritual health, our mental health, our physical health, our connections to our friends, family, community. That music enriches that, doesn't take away from that.
Right. Yeah, I feel like some people have such a passion for one particular thing and they're so with the blinders on about it that they're a little weird, like, because they miss like so much, like 98% of the rest of the world is like they don't see. And then it's hard, I think, to be a person who relates well with other people. And that can affect your art in a way, because if you don't relate to the world, how can what you're doing relate to the world? Does that make sense?
Oh, I think that's so beautiful. I think that's really really great. I mean, yeah, I'm interested in this. I love this. I'm passionate about it, and that's important. But yeah, it's there's all of us that's involved in this, and the importance of how what we do then connects to kind of the broader human experience. That's important.
Right. Do you think people go into music because they want to be the keyboardist in Coldplay and travel the world and make millions of dollars, or thrash their hair around and play guitar or whatever? Like, how realistic are those dreams, and how realistic is it instead to go down more of the classical route? Is there actually more opportunities in that realm, or is it, or do people not want to go down that route because there's no glamour and partying and fun?
I I think I think among my colleagues and successful peers, um, people have gone into music for I think a wide variety of reasons. I mean, and sometimes it is, the ego-driven, pay attention, or the love of being on stage, love of performing, and there are others who it's not so much about that as it is about like I want to learn music, I want to communicate music, I want to build community out of what I do. I want to honor the wealth of the repertoire that's out there. I think that's why I think keeping an open mind would be advice that I would continue to go back to. If you're only going into music for one thing, and if that one thing is fame and fortune, that's always going to be a moving target. That's always going to be a line that never is quite reached. Um, there will always be kind of further fame and further fortune, and will that ever truly satisfy? Whereas like a diversity of like I want to tell stories through my music making. I want to have fun collaborating with like-minded people. I want to, as an organist, as a harpsichordist, I want to see and experience incredible instruments, new and historic, here and beyond. I mean, I think having a mission statement in your life that's sort of more than just I want to be famous, is going to be so much more, I would think, enriching.
You sounded like a mentor right there. See what I did?
Honored, honored, honored to hear you say that.
I'm just wondering what's next for you. Where do you think things are headed, for you? Do you see yourself like teaching for like the rest of your days? Do you see yourself always playing, always teaching, or is a different path coming up? What's going on?
No, I don't. I don't see a different path. I see me wanting to enrich the paths that I'm on, and do even better with the paths that I'm on. But I want to continue to teach, and I want to kind of learn more about that craft, and hone my skills to be a better teacher and better mentor. I want to continue to play, and I want to continue to learn music and learn about music and learn how to perform and teach it even better. There's so much still to learn, and I'm grateful that I can still do that.
If people were trying to look you up, do you have sites, information that you want to plug right now?
Yes, ungermichael.com. I had to pause right there because I I've only recently just sort of like committed myself to a website. So ungermichael.com is the website. I hope I'm correct in that. Or finding me through the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, my faculty page there. Yeah, I that's certainly ways to find what I'm doing in the area.
Awesome, Michael. I want to say thank you so much. And I'm going to start going on a quest to find a harpsichord.
Wonderful. Everyone should have at least one. Why not?
Right. I just want to tinker with it and maybe
Oh,
feel like I'm in the Elizabethan age,
great,
Take me
great.
back.
I mean, truthfully, I mean, I know that's a funny thing to say, but there is this connection to history and connection to culture that I love about these instruments. So yeah, why not? It's great.
Thank you, Michael. This has been Michael Unger, and this is Matthew Barnard, and you have been watching or listening to another episode of Man with a Mentor. Feel free to share and like, because that's what it's all about. Thank you, Michael, and yeah, I'm so excited that we got to chat about music and the harpsichord, and I'm gonna go and watch Pride and Prejudice right now.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Michael.